So we're here today at the White House Gallery in Dagenham with Delaine Le Bas at her new exhibition, Stranger in Silver, Walking on Air. Delaine, this installation is the culmination of a 6-month residency at the White House. I wonder if you could tell me how you began approaching the project.
Well, firstly, I went to the archive with Kieran Swan, who's a senior curator here, and they'd found out as much material as they had connected with gypsies and travellers in the area. So that was really the starting point for it. But also for me, it was thinking about the house itself and where it sits on this particular place, on Green Lane, for example, which is this ridiculously long road with an amazing amount of houses, because this was a massive estate that was built between the First and Second World War, and then after the Second World War as well. So it was a combination of the archive material, what was and wasn't there, because I'm always looking for the strange things that already exist in archives, but also for things that are hidden. So you have to look for them, because it might be like a photograph where the thing you're looking for isn't why the photograph was taken. And I'm really interested in the numbers and the titles and things which are on things in archives as well. So that's where the Gypsies, Tramps and Strangers things comes from in here, volumes 1 and 2. That's a folder that's actually in the archive. A lot of the material was to do with census, so it wasn't just for this area, it was a general census as well, and it was just how people were sort of categorised. So if there's a sort of non-understanding maybe of where you come from or who you are, it was a stranger. And
so they were listed as strangers?
Yeah. And also this idea of myself feeling like a stranger here, because obviously I am a stranger, I don't come from this area, and I've sort of like landed here, and then I'm in the biggest house that's actually in this area.
So how did you go from researching in the archive and finding those materials to what we see here today? What was the process?
Well, me and Kieran collected some stuff from the archive.
Kieran's the curator?
Kieran, yeah, Kieran Swan, who's a senior curator for Create London. And I made lots of notes, I always make lots of notes and little drawings, and then I came back and I just worked a lot on paper and books. I also wrote just how it felt walking around, so things I might hear, things I might see. So a lot of the text that's on the work is actually just things that have happened while I've been here as well. And this was interesting, I was sitting upstairs and I heard horses, I heard their hooves on the tarmac, and it was someone getting married. They were in like one of those Cinderella round little carriages. As you can see, I continued along the highway to hell because it was raining as well. So it's a combination of material, both historical from the archive and also picking things out from that. So like on the original heath up the road here, there was a pub called the Three Travellers. So I saw myself as being these 3 travellers, one from the past, one from the present, and one leaving something for the future. Maybe if someone like me came back in the future, what would be left? Because I'm also interested in archives and whose archive gets held and whose doesn't. So also there's a thing about Orlando and the Bloomsbury Group as well in Charleston, because I did some work there previously as well. So it's this idea again with Orlando almost being like this time traveller.
Could you tell me more about the title of the exhibition, Stranger in Silver, Walking on Air?
That's me. In my silver coat, which I've been wearing all the time I've been here, my Air Max trainers, which my original pair that I was wearing when I first came here are sort of worn out, but I have those and they're in one of the paintings here, and they're a lot in the photographic work that I've done as well. So they reappear. So that's where that came from, because when I was writing a lot of the text, I kept saying, you know, and I know I'm a stranger in silver walking on air, because I've, you know, like if I was waiting at the bus stop, you know, there's a few comments about like how I was dressed.
So do you see the Stranger in Silver as a self-portrait?
Yeah.
Or is it more of an archetype, or is it both?
It's really it's a self-portrait, because a lot of the work, like the silhouettes, are a self-portrait of a different kind that I do, where someone draws around me in whatever clothes I'm happen to be wearing at that time. And I think in these particular ones as well, you can really see the trainers as well. There is a definite outline of those in the images.
So I read that there's about 4.5% of the UK's Gypsy, Roma and Traveller population located in East London. between Tower Hamlets, Newham and Barking and Dagenham, where we are today. How did you involve the GRT community in this project?
Well, it's been much more of a sort of outreach over a period of time. So a lot of that work has been in process, just making connection with different organisations in this area, because I don't come from this area, and it's always a slow process. It's a very difficult in many ways with the communities, because there's been a lot of bad experiences, so people are often very wary of getting involved with things. So you have to build that slowly. So one of the things we've been doing is making an invitation for the space to be open, because this space gets used by many different groups. So it's also this idea that over a period of time people recognise that maybe if they need a space to do something, they can come here, and that's a possibility. And then there'll be workshops working with Roma Support Group and other organisations as well that'll involve young people. So it's going to be because the show's on till the end of September as well, but obviously this work can continue afterwards as well, because that's also what Create London would like to do, and it's part of the work they do, like building these longer term relationships with people, which for me is also really important. Don't want to come in and just like do something for a week and then just sort of disappear. And I think because I won't be here necessarily after the time the show finishes, it's really important that it's something that's really embedded within the building and within the other people that work here as well, and the other groups that already exist also that come into the space.
So the White House was a former domestic dwelling, and your installation takes up rooms on the ground floor and in the garden. I wonder if you could just talk us through how you've approached each room and the kind of things that you've put into each room.
Well, it's a domestic space, and there wasn't much of this sort of thing in here, so it's taken the idea of domestic space and curtains and fabric and curtain twitching in a different way, because obviously with the nomadic communities that still are travelling where it's possible, because it's really, really difficult now. Of course, there's a lot of curtain twitching that goes on with that, and I've thought about this in the time that I've been here, but also this idea of working with the existing architecture within the space. And so the fabrics actually work with the natural light coming in as well, so you get you see the windows through, they sort of cast shadows, and there's also some glass works that give colour that moves across the fabric as well. And these materials can all be moved. So the groups that come in here, all of this is flexible enough so that they can come in and do exactly what they normally do here. And then this can come backwards and forwards. So it can be activated and deactivated in a way. And also when you move the fabrics, there's other works behind that you will see, and maybe only at certain times do they get seen. So for example here, so this one here, so if you were at the side there, you can just about see there's something on the wall, but if you pull it back, and also it means that materials and things that are used by the groups can be stored behind here. So when it's being used as an installation space, you don't see. So this is one of the paintings. So there's my trainers, of course, and that's this dress actually that I've got on here. And then this is the house. But it's also, I really liked, and also these pictures that are on the walls there were paintings from the other groups that had come in that were on these walls. So actually it's reactivating that space in a different way as well. So it's really thinking about what was already here in the building also, and echoing that in a different sort of way. And there's another small painting there as well, which is me in this. So there's a lot of images that I took last summer of me in this coat, and when I was out I took these images as well of different spaces when I was on walks and things. So then I've like cut myself out there, real sort of 70s cut and paste, it's not photoshopped, of me in different places around the area as well. So yeah, so then that can come back across there.
So is that painting, is that something that people will like discover if they start moving things around.
Yeah, and also it means that if you come to the house at different times, you might suddenly see something that the time you were here before you didn't see. And the same in the back room with the transfers and the painting that's on the double glazed doors, because obviously that moves around the room with the sun. So if you're here at a certain time, you won't see anything. And that's to do with this sort of invisibility, visibility thing that obviously, coming from the community I come from, we're highly visible in one way and completely invisible in another way. So it's with reference to that as well. And who is visible? Because some people have a lot more visibility than others for all sorts of reasons.
So, as with most of your installations, painted fabrics plays a transformative role here at the White House. I wonder if you could tell me why textiles are so important for you.
Well, I studied textiles and then I went on at my local art school in Worthing, which was West Sussex College of Art and Design, then it was Northbrook. And then I did fashion textiles at St Martin's. And for me, you know, we're covered in textiles. We wear them all the time. They're next to our skin. So what I like, the idea of making them more an immersive space that's with textiles. But also I like the idea that people go through these. And I know that what's going to happen with these as well, because there's going to be people in and out, they're also going to have the traces of that. And the same with the floor. Because in previous installations we keep the floors as well, because they are another way, another record of footfall, of history, of people. So I like this idea of the fabrics being used and there's sort of a precarity with that, but I'm also interested in that because historically we've got fragments of textiles, but they were all, you know, I can only imagine how many textiles there were, but of course they haven't withstood the test of time. But I sort of like that idea, that, you know, sometimes they get, I mean, conservationists don't like it, obviously, 'cause you're not supposed to touch them because of the oils from your skin and whatever you've got on your skin as well, because it causes problems with it. But I actually like that idea of it maybe in some ways almost dissolving. It sort of appeals to me.
Text also forms a significant part of your installations, and I wonder if you could tell me about how you've used language here and what some of the different phrases mean.
So some of the things are off of obviously the Gypsies, Tramps and Strangers is from the archive. Three Travellers was the name of the pub, but then I've played around with that a bit as well. Also I've broken down like even the definitions of what those words mean, and then sometimes there's other words that come out of that, like nomadism, tramps, tramping, itinerant, all of that. I mean, you know, I'm quite itinerant. I travel from place to place to earn a living. So some of these words are relevant to me as an individual. And then different things. I might have been listening to some music, so that's also on there at the same time, because the idea of creolisation of like different language that people use that isn't really recognised. So like in academia, a lot of words that are used in the day-to-day by people wouldn't be used in a text, for example, but I'm interested in putting those words into text because also I think it makes it more accessible to people. There's a lot of text here of things that I've written. I write a lot about just how I'm feeling or what's happening or things I hear, so that's in there as well. The idea of common land as well, because the heath was enclosed in 1931. So that's also has relevance now this year. It's the anniversary of the Battle of the Beanfield, for example. So this idea of enclosure, which people see as being a much more historical thing, is actually always happening, currently as well. And like who has those rules and who can use them and who can't. The idea of being displaced and dismissed. Differences, or there's lots of stuff. There's lots of references to things that I read in the archives, and then how I've sort of translated that in a different sort of way. Because I was also thinking about how do you translate words into images, and so the idea of boxes came up as well, because we're always being boxed in some sort of way. So there's a lot of boxes on the things as well as obviously with archives, things are stored in boxes.
Your installations transform the spaces in which they're installed, creating immersive, almost cave-like backdrops to your sculptures and paintings and videos and audio works. What led you to start working in that sort of multidisciplinary way?
Really, with the installations, it was because they were fabric, and I could make quite a big installation, but I could like just pack it in a suitcase and just take it everywhere. Because up until recently, I've been working in Europe a lot, and also working with a lot of different people that didn't necessarily have big budgets, so I could just like take it very easily. It's very transportable. You can create something quite big out of a very small package, really. And the idea of them being immersive is because I like people to experience it, and even though I usually perform in them, it means whoever comes into the space really is performing in a way. And I like that idea of the performative within the work as well. And this particular fabric, I work a lot on this. It's almost like tracing tissue paper. Has a bit more resilience than normal tissue paper. And so the idea of also the visibility, the invisibility thing comes in with that as well, and the layering. I use sound a lot. I mean, we haven't got any sound in here at the moment, but there will be some sound when we do performances and things. And sometimes we build on that. But I collaborate with quite a few people, like Justin Langland's usually with my sound, and Laszlo Farkas with my films, and Hera Santos with the performance. And we will be asking some other people to come into the space and do things as well for the duration of the show.
So you talked about collaborating with others there, but the other objects on display here, they're all made by yourself?
No, so we worked in collaboration with different fabricators for the rubbish dolls and the ceramics, and also there's some furniture that will be coming at a later date as well for the kitchen. So yeah, I mean, I can decorate things, and like I can do film footage, but I can't edit. And so therefore I'm not going to pretend that it's me that does those things, because I didn't, you know.
Yeah, so collaboration is quite important.
Collaboration's really important, and it's also, for me, it's handing it to someone who has those skills and just allowing them to do that, and then I just do the bit that I can do, but not trying to force or enforce something that I might want to do onto the skill that they have. Because if I could do it, I should be doing it myself. I shouldn't be like... So for me, it's really important to bring the skills that we both have, or we all have together, in the best possible way.
You mentioned the rubbish dolls, which is something you've explored over quite a number of years. Could you talk a bit about where they came from and how you've explored them here?
Well, the rubbish dolls they came about in about 2004, so they're on a big piece of work of mine called Meet Your Neighbours, because in 2005 the Conservatives they put in full-page adverts in the broadsheets and the tabloids that they wanted to revoke the Human Rights Act for Gypsy, Roma and Traveller people. Ongoing, that is. I mean, they'd like to revoke it for everybody, I think, to be honest with you, but that was their stance at the time. And there was a lot of imagery, photographs and things that a lot of them were old as well. They weren't even from that time. Some of them were even from the 80s. But there's always this association with Gypsy, Roma and Travellers and rubbish. And so I made these little dolls that were made out of bin bags, but they had these quite cutesy little plastic faces from, you know, those little sort of vintage dolls that you get, that you used to be able to make little dolls on soft-bodied figures out of. And because last year was like their 20th anniversary, they were 20 years old last year, I thought it might be quite nice to because they have this idea that some people are also treated like rubbish. Also, there's a lot of rubbish. I've seen a lot of rubbish just sort of scattered about, because sometimes it's not collected, and then foxes and seagulls and things get into it, ends up being everywhere. But also, where does the rubbish go to? And where do the people go to that are treated like rubbish? So there's a really serious lot of layers to them, but at the same time, they're quite sort of cutesy in a way, but they're a little bit spooky as well. And we've sort of made them so they go into the garden, so they're like little garden gnomes, but they can move about. So the idea was we'd move them about so they weren't in one place all the time as well.
Because I know you like to work outside.
Yeah.
Was it made outside, most of this?
No, a lot of this was made upstairs because luckily I've got a room here. At home I don't, so I work outside in the garden, but they were still done on a washing line. That's why they look the way they do, because I love a washing line to work on. That's how I'm used to working as well.
One of the main themes of the exhibition is the prejudices against and the exclusion of the Gypsy, Roma and Traveller people in broader society. How has that impacted you personally? In many ways, I suppose. Expectations, but also what people expect. That's why when you come to the house, the first thing you see above the door is the neon, which looks like question marks, but actually they're not really question marks. I was standing in the middle of the road taking photographs at night of the lights of the traffic, so it looks like a question mark. So there's that. Just the fact that people have this expectation about what you should look like, what you should be doing or shouldn't be doing when you come from certain communities. For example, regarding planning, my parents had lots of problems on the land that they were on, and I had to even destroy some of my work due to that. So I've experienced it from quite a young age. Also newspapers and things phoning up and asking, I would say, stupid questions. So I think that my own experience, so with the work here, this is my experience. It's not like me working with someone else and trying to put their experience into the work. It's my experience of how I feel about what I'm looking at, what I'm seeing and what I'm experiencing. You mentioned newspapers asking stupid questions. Is that misconceptions about Romani life?
Yeah, I don't even think it's. It's not just even newspapers. I mean, I can do a talk about my work, and explain who I am and where I've come from and what my experience is, and people will still come up to me at the end of it and say, "But why are you making this association with this community?" And I say, "I'm not making an association. I am one. I am from. This is where I come from." But it's still my own individual perspective. And they'll ask me the same question. They'll say the same thing to me again, and it's just because there's such a sort of fixed idea, I think, about who I should be, what I should look like, what I should be doing, that I sort of like throw that completely out of where it's placed. And it's massively problematic, I think. I mean, it's really not pleasant when someone comes up to you and is telling you who you should be.
I think there is, I mean, in society there still is that kind of broad perception that as a Romani person you should be on the road in your caravan, sleeping under the stars and that kind of thing. But obviously you live in a residential home, in a house in where is it, Worthing?
Worthing, yeah.
So do you come up against that kind of misconception?
Well, there's that misconception. I mean, I've lived in trailers, I've lived in mobile homes, I've lived on land, not in a house, as well as living in a house. And now, as my nan used to say, you know, she used to say to me, "Oh, they all call themselves travellers, Dee, but you travel more than most of them. You put them to shame in that way." So it's like I'm constantly on the move, but to be on the move in a trailer with a certain vehicle is becoming more and more difficult. I mean, the new police crime sentencing courts bill will tell you that. So it's not an easy way of life.
So I had a question about thinking about acceptance of the GRT communities. Do you think things have got better? And it sounds like from what you're saying, things haven't necessarily got better. Or maybe in some ways they have, in some ways they haven't?
I think it's always, you know, half and half, you could say. But I still think that in terms of recognition and in terms of the racism, it's probably not got better. I mean, I've got a massive archive of material, and sometimes I do find it quite depressing when I look at things that I've got from the 80s, believe it or not, and I think, oh, things haven't changed that much. So it is hard, and because of the different things that have happened, you know, that's why it being the, you know, like the anniversary of the Battle of the Beanfield this year, I think if people look at that and see what came about from that with the government and things, they would understand that also these things have knocked on to everybody. It's like even the research here from the archive. You know, one of the main reasons for enclosing the heath was not wanting the fairs, not wanting people gathering actually. And we know that this is they don't even want people to gather just to protest about things that everyone should be protesting about. So there's been this gradual erasure.
Just moving the discussion onto the art world, obviously things have changed a lot over the course of your career. Groups who have been marginalised for a long time are gaining recognition, and in your own work in 2007 you were included in the first Roma pavilion at Venice, and obviously nominated for the Turner Prize last year. I mean, how do you feel about, in terms of the art world, the visibility and acceptance that you've had there?
I mean, I'm still, because I've worked in Europe a lot and I was really under the radar here, even though I've worked here a lot in the UK. But from 2006, I really worked in Europe. So I was sort of unknown to a degree. So being nominated for the Turner Prize has really put the light on me and my work. And I was working, before I went into Europe, with mainly artist-run spaces like Transition in Victoria Park. So it was all very artist-run, artists helping other artists, which I'm really keen to encourage where it's possible. Obviously, financially, it's really difficult for people. So, yeah, and then we did the first Roma pavilion in Venice in 2007. And that was, but that's taken a long time, you know, I mean, that's nearly 20 years soon. So it's not been, it's been a really, and even now it's still, I wouldn't say it's easy. I think it's a marathon, as I say to people. It's not a sprint. And I think for us, unlike many other people who, there were many more people involved in the arts, for example, we're still quite a small group of artists, really. So it's still, there's still a lot of work to be done, I think, especially in terms of what people's expectations are. Because I'm not going to give people a sort of my take on a sort of sanitised version of what people would like to be seeing or reading or hearing, because I don't think it's not possible, in a way. That's why there's no written on everything. It's like no as an affirmation, really. It's like, no, I'm not going to be put in that box. No, I'm not going to listen to that, because I'm fed up with hearing that sort of rhetoric as well. And also, it's not a box-ticking exercise. You can't just do one thing and think that's okay. You've got to really change things.
And just lastly, what do you hope visitors will take away from this exhibition?
Hopefully they'll just think. I mean, the kitchen is, I've called that 3 R's, which is read, rest and remember, or rest, read and remember. Because we've got a library in there, you can have a cup of tea, you can sit down. So hopefully they'll take something from that. And we've got quite a different selection of books out there. We've got like the first Roma Pavilion catalogue. So that shows, I think, that there's been this sort of, and there was work going on before that. That was just a highlight. So there were artists working previously, but it was really only when I did that I got to find out about other artists who historically have been working, particularly in Europe. So hopefully that's what people will take. It will just give them a different viewpoint on it. And also when you come down the road and you're outside the house, like once you walk inside, hopefully it's like entering another world, a bit of a sort of time travelling experience.